Hi, my name's Rob Scott from UC Today News, and in this session, I'm joined by Dan Nader, who's a Chief Product Officer at Theta Lake. And today we're going to be discussing how Microsoft Teams reaches all areas of an enterprise nowadays, which can often result in Teams admins locking down features. Now, Dan's going to offer his expertise and explain how your organization can enjoy unrestricted usage, leading to better end user adoption and productivity, and of course, compliance management and less risk. So stand by, folks, for a really insightful session, and we'll kick on. Welcome, Dan. How's it going?
Great. Thank you.
Good to see you, Dan. Really interested in today's topic. I know it's certainly right within your wheelhouse over at Theta Lake. So, I mean, first of all, Dan, could you start by just explaining why Microsoft Teams is fundamentally different from other unified communications platforms and collaboration platforms, for that fact?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of great platforms out there, but I think Microsoft has dominant market share because they started with things like Exchange and Outlook and SharePoint and OneDrive, and they've added Teams, Viva Engage, lots of other platforms, and they've done a good job allowing users to share content back and forth, launch one app within another app. And so it becomes very easy to collaborate across all of the different platforms. So that makes it really powerful. It's easy to use, and it's just a single platform to manage.
Yeah, it certainly feels like a work hub nowadays, doesn't it? It's got so much in there. It's a real ecosystem of applications and automations and all sorts of things happening nowadays. So yeah, far beyond that kind of usual unified communications kind of platform. So, I mean, Dan, you mentioned that it interfaces with a range of Microsoft 365 applications. I know we've got SharePoint in there, we've got OneDrive, and now we've even got Viva Engage. Can you elaborate on how that integration piece enhances the overall productivity and user experience within organizations?
Yeah, sure. It's just a lot easier for users to be in one app or one suite of apps. If you have to go from your email program to your chat program to some file stored somewhere else. It just takes time. It's confusing. The interfaces are different. And so it's really easy to stay within that ecosystem. I can switch between my email app and share somewhere. I don't need to get retrained on new applications. Most of the Microsoft apps kind of work the same. And so I can kind of boost my productivity by staying within one app. And so it's good for IT people, but it's also good for the end user.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine from an IT admin point of view, it's far easier to manage one, or the estate of applications in one place than it is otherwise. And yeah, certainly from productivity wise, single pane of glass. I think we've been hearing that for a lot of years nowadays. But Microsoft Teams really did kind of fulfill that vision, I suppose. I mean, Dan, why is it crucial to ensure that Teams is fully deployed and without restrictions?
Yeah, the thing that we've seen is in regulated user spaces, there are concerns about being able to retain and supervise that content. And what we found is most users aren't bad. They don't intend to do bad things. They just want to get their jobs done. Now, if you disable features for them, they're going to try to do it some other way. And the good news for them and the bad news for the firm is that these platforms now, they're democratized, right? They're consumerized. Anyone with a credit card can get their own app, right? Anyone with a credit card can sign up and get one of these UC tools to use on their own. So perversely, by turning off features and not allowing them to be used because you're concerned that you won't be able to retain or you won't be able to supervise, you actually make the problem worse because now you've got communications that's happening outside of your control and communications that you might not even know are happening.
Yeah, and that's a key point. You're driving the wrong type of behavior, aren't you? Almost towards that shadow IT badge that I suppose we've given it, that when we deploy or start using WhatsApp in groups and things like that, and start putting
Exactly.
files, critical business files, confidential information, I can imagine across these platforms when they shouldn't be. So, yeah, it's really interesting, this one, isn't it? And many organizations, especially in regulated industries, have concerns about compliance, haven't they? And when using these collaboration tools like Teams, especially, so how does Theta Lake address these compliance concerns while still allowing the unrestricted experience of Teams?
Yeah, I mean, we're literally enabling technology, right? There is a strong desire from the business to leverage the productivity and the ease of use for these tools. They want to communicate with their prospects, with their partners in a way that is very easy to do, right? And so when one part of the firm says, hey, you can't use these tools, the other part of the firm, who probably bought the tool, says, look, my productivity is worse. I'm losing ROI. I'm paying full price for these tools, but now I can't use half of them, right? I was talking to someone probably about 5 or 6 weeks ago. We were talking about exactly this issue where maybe the compliance team is not comfortable with certain features being used. And he said, oh my God, we live that every day. We buy a Porsche, but then the compliance team gets their hands on it and we end up with a Kia, right? And so nothing wrong with the Kia, but if you're paying for a Porsche, you want to get full value out of it. And so with Theta Lake, we can talk to both sides. We can help them understand that they can, in fact, turn on all of these features. And we do have the technology to capture all of the content, to capture everything that they need, and make sure that they can retain it and then supervise it later. So it becomes win-win for everybody. We can make it such that the company feels confident that they can turn on all of these features in a fully compliant way, and then the business gets to use them the way they were intended.
Yeah, I can imagine this is very much about striking a balance, isn't it? Between keeping them switched on but staying compliant. I imagine that's quite tricky. I mean, what are you doing to kind of bring that balance? What kind of what's your advice to organizations that understand that but feel that they might not be able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the main issue, right? It's our job to convince all parties that we can make this win-win for them, right? We can deploy smart capture technology to pull in all of the information to ensure that they are going to be compliant. We, in fact, even make it easier for them to search for things after the fact, right? To go back to the first question, if you have phone calls and text messages and chats and meetings, in a lot of firms today, those different types of content are actually being held in different repositories. And so it's a challenge to be able to find everything that you're looking for. And so we can pull all that in, we can normalize it and make it easy for you, again, not just to capture and retain it, but also to make sure that you can find what you're looking for after the fact.
Yeah, it's a really interesting topic. I mean, we talk a lot about productivity, don't we, nowadays? It's all about productivity. It's the year of AI now, and everyone's looking at AI to boost that productivity and hybrid work and all that kind of thing. It's tough out there. There's a lot of business challenges to adapt to these new demands. I mean, can we really improve productivity with this? With the Theta Lake solution? Because I'm kind of wondering how. It must be a challenge if someone's turned off all these features to be able to turn them back on. So, what kinds of experiences have you had with your customers, and have you seen any kind of real productivity boosts afterwards?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I mentioned that we're enabling technology. We've had scenarios. One customer has a few 100,000 users, and they were getting pushback on deploying in-meeting chat for Microsoft Teams. And it was because the compliance team wanted to ensure that they could post disclaimers into these chats. And so we worked closely with them and with Microsoft to develop a capability to allow them to do that, right? And once they did that, they were able to roll it out to all of their users, right? And so everyone now had, again, a standard way of doing things, a standard way of collaborating, not just internally, but externally with their customers and with their prospects as well. I'd say that uh, there are a lot of different issues that people bring up. There are others who might have groups of users who are in different places. Maybe they've got a set of users in Germany, they've got a set of users in the US, and maybe one in Canada, and the rules for retaining that content can be different. And so, they look to us to bring technology that helps them be able to say, yes, look, we're meeting all of the rules and the regulations, right? So in that example, we can actually look at content that comes in and say, oh, right, this is a German user. So we literally need to retain that content in Germany physically, right?
Yeah.
These American users, we can keep their content in the US. And so the flexibility that the architecture provides, again, makes it easy to turn a concern into sort of a win for them, because they know that they can sort of satisfy their users and they can satisfy the requirements. But I will tell you, it doesn't even have to be as fancy as that. I mean, I'd say, almost every company we talk to, they struggle just with the basics, being able to capture all the chat, being able to capture, animations, edits, deletions, capture information like join and leave times, so they know when users are in a conversation and when they aren't. Not all capture tools are created equal, and so a lot of them struggle because they miss little bits and pieces. And again, if you're missing some of that content, it's as good as not having that content at all.
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic, this one, especially as I imagine you're right. There's probably some big features that you can't live without that are probably getting turned off, but there are lots of little things that you can address to improve that productivity as you go along and just make those workflows flow a little bit smoother. So let's talk data loss. I mean, this is a really important point. I mean, data loss is a real concern for a lot of organizations. So how does Theta Lake assist firms in minimizing data loss risks while ensuring that Teams usage remains kind of unrestricted, if you will?
Yeah, right now it's a big problem, right? You've got all of this communication, collaboration happening across email and chats and videos and things like that. And so, after ensuring that they can capture all that content, the next thing that firms generally want to do is make sure that things aren't leaving the company, that you don't have sensitive information, you don't have proprietary information, or you don't have PII, right? That is either inadvertently or purposefully being sent outside the company. And so one of the things that we do really well is we're able to actually look at all that content, and we've got a set of classifiers that can recognize when things are potentially problematic. So if I'm typing things maybe in meeting chat, or I say something over the phone, or I send something in a text, maybe I include an account number, a social security number, something else that might be sensitive. We're able to flag that. And so we can do things like, in some cases, literally remediate it, remove it off of the platform, or we can redact it such that in the record that we keep, that sensitive information is not displayed. We can even do things like, literally, if we're in a meeting and I hold up a document that is proprietary, right, or confidential, we can flag the fact that I did that, right? Because we're actually looking at the screen, and we can tell when something inappropriate is being shown or shared. In fact, if I maybe share the wrong screen and I have a spreadsheet open, we can tell that it's a spreadsheet open, and we can actually look at the spreadsheet and say, ooh, not only are you sharing a spreadsheet on the screen right now, but there's actually a column full of account numbers, and that's proprietary, and you shouldn't do that. So we can flag that kind of information.
It really is impressive that you can get to that level. I'd love to see the dashboard, from an admin, I suppose, or monitoring point of view. I mean, just thinking about the wider Microsoft Teams, Microsoft 365 ecosystem, what role does kind of Theta Lake play in the kind of supporting not just Teams, but the kind of broader spectrum of applications within the Microsoft suite?
Yeah, Microsoft's not standing still, right? They work aggressively to introduce new
Yeah.
features, to introduce new products. We're fortunate in that we have a very good relationship with them. I think are one of the only ones to have a true kind of certified integration for recording meetings. But my team actually meets with their team very regularly, and we talk about things that are on their roadmap that we might want to pay attention to. We share our roadmap with them so that we can make sure we're aligned. But our goal is to make sure that if Microsoft is releasing a capability or a feature that our customers are going to want to use, our goal is to make sure that we're going to be able to retain that content and we'll normalize it, make it look like everything else, and then make it available. So we work hand in hand on an ongoing basis to make sure that that's happening.
That's great to hear. So, looking ahead, what trends or developments do you anticipate in the realm of kind of Microsoft Teams and collaboration tools? And how's Theta Lake going to continue to evolve its offerings to meet the needs of organizations?
Yeah, well, this wouldn't be an interview if we didn't say AI at least one time, right? So I'll mention it now. I think that Microsoft is aggressively working toward putting AI into lots of pieces of their product, and so we're following along closely. We want to make sure that we can help either in validating that someone has enabled a setting that might allow for generative AI to be on. Maybe adding disclaimers that would let people know if there is AI generated content being shared. And in our own product, right, we can leverage generative AI to have more natural language search to be able to pull in all of this content. We can leverage summaries to maybe look across a conversation. One of the things that we can do across Microsoft is we can link all of these things. So if you and I maybe over a month are sending each other email messages, and then we're in Teams meetings and we're calling each other and we're posting messages on Viva Engage, whatever it happens to be, we can actually link that all up and we can show a true kind of across the board conversation that shows you the context of the calls, right? So if you send me an email that says, "Hey, let's talk about this," and then I send you a text message that says, "Hey, why don't you send it to me a different way?" I can see all of those things, and so one of the things that we want to be able to do, other than just providing that full context and all of that unified replay of the entire conversations, we want to be able to summarize that, right? We could leverage AI to be able to say, look, over the last month, Rob and Dan were talking about these topics, right? And here are the things that they said. That makes it a lot easier for people who are trying to review a lot of this content. They can do it more quickly. They can get the gist of what it is. And then if they need to, they can dive into all of the details and pinpoint exactly what it is that they're looking for.
It sounds like things are going to get really exciting in your world, with the advent of AI, Gen AI, and just all this data and available to us. It's going to get really interesting. The product sounds like it's going to come on leaps and bounds in with and the potential is huge, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Hey Dan, thanks for sharing your expertise today. I've really enjoyed talking to you today.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
And for our viewers, if you'd like to find out more on this topic, we're going to be delving into the wider Microsoft ecosystem in our forthcoming webinar, which will air shortly after Microsoft Ignite 2023. So I'm afraid that's all we've got time for today. Dan, it's been really good talking to you once again, and thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
And thanks to everyone for tuning in. If you've got some good takeaways from today's session, do give us a quick mention on social. And don't forget to register for our up and coming Theta Lake webinar. And there's going to be a link down below. I'm Rob Scott from UC Today. Thanks for watching.